good afternoon or morning for some of you all. Appreciate you taking the time to sign up and register for today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about crafting winning strategies in senior living communities for boosting employee retention, specifically leveraging strategies through awards, recognition, and gamification. Before I hop in, just a bit about me and a bit about Icon. If you're not familiar, I'm Ryan Galley. I'm the CEO of Icon. We are a communication and engagement platform for senior living communities, helping engage really everyone from residents, families, all the way through to staff. And so we kind of help with both sides of the house. You can't have happy residents without happy staff. And so a big part of our mission is helping you engage, inform, and unite all your staff members to provide an amazing experience, the kind of experience that helps you retain, but also the type that people are going to talk about and promote, and so help you attract more talent to your community. So with that, let me kick things off a little bit. The focus today, as I said, is going to be more on the staff side of the house, specifically around strategies for retention. I'm going to quickly run through because it's kind of a no-brainer. Why retention? Why is this important? Why do we need to be thinking about retention? I think that's a no-brainer. But we'll kind of give the high level again, talk about some of the impacts, specifically some of the trends we're seeing in the industry right now with respect to retention. And then we'll dive into really the meat of the retention recipe, if you will. So the approaches to boost retention, some of the techniques that we can use effectively, specifically rewards and recognition. We'll talk about different types of recognition that you can use, as well as how you can make it fun. There's nothing better than injecting a little bit of fun into the workplace. That really can be a powerful retention tool. So gamification is another thing we'll talk about. And then we'll talk about how practically you can go about actually implementing and crafting one of these programs. We'll run through a sample of a program and then give you a bit of a preview into how Icon can help here with our new employee engagement platform that we are rolling out right now. So with that, kind of the no-brainer, why does retention matter? Why is this an issue in our industry? And I think there has been improvements in certain geographies throughout the U.S., but still on average, turnover rates are above 50%, and staff are really in the driver's seat right now. It's something we keep hearing from operators. Staff have a lot of influence right now to kind of call the shots, and so we're still seeing that really high turnover. And I know a lot of people, especially during COVID, tried techniques like sign-on bonuses and pay increases, but still haven't seen that improvement. And this gap, if you just look at the demographics, it's just going to widen. I mean, there is not enough people in the age group that will be caregivers when the baby boomers are in our communities to adequately support them. So we need to make sure that the staff we do have are treated as well as can possibly be. And so that way we can retain those staff we do have and hopefully attract some more people into working in every industry. So with that, just quickly on some of the obvious impacts of retention, but maybe going a bit deeper beyond just like the headline numbers. The stat I'm sure everyone hears constantly is every hire costs at least $5,000, and so each turnover is very expensive. And I'm sure I don't need to remind anyone that how high agency labor, how expensive that can be. 20-25% more on average. But beyond the obvious costs, I mean, it also just affects the senior experience. Turnover is linked to increased incidences of ulcers, urinary tract infections, pain. It's just the ability to offer quality care is just ultimately compromised if you have staff kind of switching in and out. And then the final piece is just that risk of litigation. I was talking to an insurer recently. They're investing a lot actually in programs that they'll fund to help their senior living communities do better at offering an experience that staff find satisfying, because the value to them in reduced insurance claims is just that substantial. So really seeing, just how big the cost is if you have the insurers even coming in and trying to figure out ways to get involved and have an impact. So all the doom and gloom everyone hears all the time, nothing new. But let's now get into the fun stuff. How can you use low cost techniques to really boost retention? So we'd spent a lot of time and looked at the academic literature here and tried to figure out ways. I mean, the best solution is obviously if you can build a great culture, but how do you go from zero to that? And are there things you can do that disproportionately improve retention, but require not a ton of effort? Because a cultural change is extremely challenging to undertake. And so some great techniques, especially with the hourly workers, that have been shown to be incredibly effective, are things like recognizing or recognition and gamification. So one stat here on the left, organizations with effective recognition programs on average saw about 30% lower voluntary turnover, which is pretty substantial. In the middle here, you see too that gamification techniques, which we'll dig into a bit more, and combined with employee recognition, can drive a 48% or 50% increase almost in employee satisfaction. And the final piece is just that on average, companies with effective rewards programs, effective incentive programs, see on average 50% lower turnover rates. But not all recognition is created equal, and how you actually do this really matters if you're gonna see these benefits. And so let's first talk about what do we mean by recognition? Because there's a lot of types of recognition, and it's not always immediately obvious which are going to be the most effective, and it really is going to be situational dependent. So the one that I'm sure everyone is familiar with it was just publicly recognizing somebody for their accomplishments. That's kind of the most basic form of recognition. So this could be recognizing an employee in a town hall for going above and beyond. This is kind of rooted in social learning theory, and can be a great technique in reinforcing positive behaviors if used appropriately. So if you tie, or announce wins or highlight employees for certain activities that either represent your core values or types of behavior that you want to see kind of reflected in your entire employee base, recognizing an individual for that specific action is incredibly important. The key is recognizing for that specific action. Recognition that's vague, you lose a lot of that benefit. So focus on, it works well if you're focusing on things like company values or very specific milestones or things that were accomplished by this person. The other way you could do it, which is also probably something everyone's doing already, is the private recognition, so one-on-one recognition. This is really good too, especially for those employees that are more introverted. The public acknowledgement might not be the best form for that person. They might feel singled out. And so knowing your employee is super important, how you think they're going to react to different types of recognition. So taking them aside can be really effective, but again, it's only effective if you're very specific as to what you're recognizing them for. Just saying good job is too vague, and it provides some benefit, but not ultimately. It's ultimately you're losing a big benefit of the effectiveness of that type of recognition. But now let's go beyond the less or the obvious ones. So you can also recognize with monetary incentive. Again, has to be really carefully used. Monetary rewards like spot bonuses can be amazing motivators, but they work well if you are trying to incentivize very specific, measurable, typically, goals. So if you can if you have a very specific outcome that you can measure that you want someone to achieve, a spot bonus, gift card, whatever it is, can be really powerful in aligning expectations. This doesn't work as well if it's kind of either for vague reasons, but also for, sometimes we'll throw money at people before they even join the company, or just because the industry is doing it. Doing that, you're going to lose a lot of the benefit of why monetary incentives work. But non-monetary rewards work pretty much just as well. And so it's, and it can work better for certain people. There's different people who are motivated by different things. And that's, again, something you need to recognize for your unique population. I think that's a key takeaway here throughout the whole talk is different people have different underlying fundamental motivators, and you need to kind of uncover that. What do they care about? Is it money? Is it autonomy? Is it being kind of the face, being recognized amongst your peers? What is it? And figure that out, because you could be throwing a monetary reward at a person who doesn't really value that. They value autonomy, and you're kind of losing the money benefit. You're tossing money at something that's not effective, and then also not getting the benefit of recognition. So it's kind of a double loss in that sense. So non-monetary rewards can be things like unique experiences, maybe a lunch with the CEO, maybe it's a catered lunch for the team, maybe it's an extra day of PTO. Get creative with it. These can be really great, and they can also be used much more broadly, I think, than financial incentives. I think they work well still, even if the goal or reason for providing isn't as specific and measurable as what we were talking about with monetary rewards. Along those lines, which I would kind of put in the same bucket, is that professional development opportunity. Some people value this far more than the monetary incentive. So again, if for that employee, you've identified this as one of the three major buckets of ways that person is motivated, if you slot into one of the buckets, this could be a really powerful thing if they like that autonomy, they like that development. This is, again, a lot of data behind this in self-determination theory as to why this works. It's a great way to show you a vote of confidence in that employee's development by sending them on this. It really shows that, okay, the company believes in me, which motivates greater work when the person comes back from the training. And at the same time, you're developing an employee that might be able to take on more responsibility. And then the final bucket is peer-to-peer recognition. So this is encouraging an environment amongst your staff where one staff member might give kudos to another, maybe for helping them out on a tough shift, whatever it is. That can be really powerful. That builds that kind of tight-knit kind of group mentality, where you're a team. You really feel like everyone is contributing, and anyone leaving that would be kind of upsetting to the balance. And so you really build that kind of framework. So we talked about a lot about recognition, the different types, and when to use and not use different forms of it. What about gamification? And we actually did another webinar quite recently on gamification for residents. And so we talked at great length. It was a great webinar about how this tool can be used for seniors, but it also is a great tool for staff, especially as you see the millennial and the Gen Z demographic moving into the workplace. This type of form of encouragement and recognition is much better aligned with kind of how they've grown up and been conditioned. I think, good or bad, however you see it, both those generations have been very, rooted in their phones and apps, and have been conditioned almost in a sense to to kind of feel rewarded when they're playing a game and they get a smiley or they get a kudos or recognition in the app. So making it fun and aligned with how they've kind of learned to seek reward. So gamification is not a scary word. It's really just making things fun. Not everything needs to be a scary new policy. Employees have to achieve X goal or else let's not do that. Let's try to make things fun. So if you're going to do this successfully, the key is, you can either do a rewards based program, which we can talk about how you can use our app to manage that. However you do it, the key is you want to only reward behavior that you want reinforced. So where this can go really, really bad is, for example, if you start rewarding people every time they log into a system, because then everyone's just going to do it as a check the box exercise and things can kind of get out of hand. You want to kind of more reward the outcome rather than the act itself. So like, why are they logging in? Reward the behavior that you're trying to achieve at the end of that goal. That will make things a lot more effective. And I think no better way to kind of show or talk about how gamification can work than talking through kind of how we do it with our application. So things like community, if you're multi-site, maybe community competitions. That can be really fun. It's friendly competition between your different communities that can create a sense of fun. You can incentivize, for example, if one community gets best place to work, for example, maybe we throw a pizza party or something like that. So you can make it fun. It doesn't have to necessarily be person versus person. And that actually, I think, is probably one of the least effective ways to go with it. You're generally going to want more to do things like a department versus department or community versus community. That's how you build that team environment. The 1v1 can work. It just has to be done very carefully. And so again, going back to how do you set targets and goals? The key is you need to understand your audience, your unique population of staff, what you think is going to motivate them, and then you can kind of refine the game mechanics to best suit your own unique population. And so like we'll kind of hop over to talking about how we can do it with our app. Two other benefits, though, I just want to make sure I touch on before I hop to that. A great thing about gamifying is it does help you capture more data in the interim. So a lot of people kind of feel like they're flying blind until they get to the employee performance review. This can be a great approach to letting the employee kind of get some feedback in the interim. I know we should all be giving feedback regularly, but oftentimes it's not happening because employees might not feel comfortable or whatever it is. It's a great way to give people a line of sight in the interim, and also give you a line of sight as an employer to see if any, any employees kind of struggling a bit. This is really makes it visible for you to kind of single that person out and to kind of take them to the side and help coach them up. The other thing that I just wanted to mention on this before we hop ship is recognizing that you actually might be doing a lot of this already in your community, and maybe it's not even formalized. And so I would just encourage you to kind of take stock of where you might be having these little friendly competitions already with your employees, and kind of start there and kind of build on that success. That's going to be a lot easier than trying to start something from the ground up. So, okay, let's talk about gamification. We talked about rewards and recognition. How can we now implement these tools, these science-backed tools, to actually boost our retention and do so effectively? And I talked about a lot of different ways in which forms of recognition might better line up with different personalities and such, but let's talk more systematically. So step one, take stock of your team, have the managers. So this is going to be a manager by manager initiative. Have the managers kind of identify where their employees lie on that incentive kind of spectrum of, are they rewarded, incentivized by money, autonomy, development? Try to figure out what motivates them. Once you have a stock of that, you can figure out which recognition types are going to be best suited. And it's probably going to be a mix. So whether it's public acknowledgement or some quiet appreciation, whatever it is, figure that out. Then figure out what is your actual goal. It can't just be retention in and of itself. I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. Is like, oh, I just want to keep my employees. How can I do that? And one of the best ways to do that is, it is a job. So if you can kind of give them the experience that they're looking for, like there's a reason they came to work for you. Give them that experience, and that will retain them. And so align whatever recognition rewards program you're doing, align it with very specific goals that you're trying to help this person achieve, or that you want them to achieve. And you can even start with simple things. Maybe it's a special event, recognizing people for tenure is somewhat of a good technique, but you can go further and recognize for going above and beyond in a specific situation or something like that. Again, you want to use a balance between monetary and non-monetary recognition. So maybe it's a mix of using gift cards, but also a mix of kind of public recognition and acknowledgement. Maybe it's a day off of an extra day of PTO. Maybe it's professional development. Do a mix, offer a mix. If you use a point system like we'll describe, you can kind of put that optionality back onto your employees, so you don't have to prospectively identify what the people in your organization are going to want as the rewards. If you do a point system, they can kind of then use those points in a sense as currency to pick, do I want professional development do I want that with my points, or do I want just money? So I just want gift cards, whatever it is, or a bonus. Using points is is really a great way to help kind of put the employee in the driver's seat, in a sense, and not have you guessing what best is going to motivate them. But make sure that you still do the exercise of figuring out in general what your population is like, so that you are offering, if you do a point system, you are offering the right kinds of stuff and have the right kinds of stuff available. Don't underestimate peer-to-peer recognition. This can be tough to foster, but if you are able to get to the point where you have an environment where different employees are encouraging each other, there's nothing better that you can do for retention and job satisfaction. So do not underestimate that. How do you actually encourage people to be recognizing each other for great behavior? We can talk about that a bit with how you can use technology to facilitate that. But don't underestimate this is an effective channel. Again, you want recognition to be almost regular and spontaneous. You don't want it to be something that happens once a year, like the performance review around Christmas time, and then during that, the rest of the year, there's really no interim feedback, and that you're not really able to then tie to specific performances. It's much more broad, general performance throughout the year. You want it to be much more real time. So that's another key to doing this effectively. The next bucket is, I kind of alluded to this, technology can be your best friend here. People like us and other organizations have looked at what works and taken from different organizations, different companies that have really good employee programs, and built that into an app. And so the app, the workflows that are available in it are already kind of the best in class programs that you could implement. So it really takes a lot of the planning work out of having to implement one of these programs. So it makes things a lot easier out of the gate, and you can get started a lot faster. It does help if the technology obviously has experience in your industry, because there are unique little differences to what types of programs might work for different kinds of employees, depending on more professional type. I would also just a couple more, I think an important thing to not forget about is be cognizant of cultural differences in your population. Just make sure that whatever program you put together is inclusive. The goal here is to make your employees feel valued. You don't want them to feel uncomfortable. So really try whatever you do to put yourself in their shoes, to be on the receiving end of a recognition program, and think about how they would react. And then finally, solicit feedback. I'd even identify employees from all different levels to kind of be on the recognition committee in a sense. Your program is going to kind of morph and bend and be unique to you. There's going to be a unique identity to it, and that's great. If the employees feel like they have some ownership and control over the program design, it's just going to be that much more effective. And you'll get those learnings. The first program you roll out is not going to be perfect. You need to get that feedback from the frontline staff and refine, iterate to make sure your program is working well. And then the final thing is, don't forget to measure the impact. This is all great, but to know if it's working, look at those turnover rates. Are they improving? Are we actually having an influence? And if we're not, why? Oftentimes it might be an issue with how we've implemented recognition rewards, and we need to take a step back and tweak the program a bit. So again, don't lose sight of the ultimate goal here, which is to provide a increased retention and happier workforce. So regularly survey on happiness of your staff. We do NPS internally. You might use a different system, but regularly do that and monitor that turnover over time. And it might take a little bit to see an impact. It might take several months, but just keep watching, and you will see that benefit. So with that, I alluded to how we worked with a bunch of communities to try to develop and are continuing to develop a best-in-class employee retention app. And we actually are encouraging customers, if this is of interest to them, and they want to be involved and help in kind of guiding the design of the platform to reach out and maybe pilot it, because we are right now actively refining it, given it's a newer application. So how we're going to update this as we go, but for starters, we built out really 4 components, and actually I'll hop to that. So that's probably a bit more instructive. So we built in the ability to recognize. And so this is recognition staff to staff, manager to staff, and then eventually family to staff, and resident to staff. This can be incredibly powerful. The technology just is a tool to break barriers, to make it easy, to really show that you as an organization want to encourage this kind of peer-to-peer culture, this feedback culture, this encouraging culture. And so the technology can be a great way to break those barriers down and get people to start acknowledging each other's great work and kind of giving people a slap on the back and saying, great job. This is a great way to do it. And another great way is with the family ability to recognize and the resident ability to recognize. I think, a lot of people go into this line of work because they're passionate about caring for seniors. And it can be hard. I mean, especially if you're doing memory care, you might not be getting that gratification of all the time you're putting in, day to day. But if a family member is able to very easily send a quick note to you saying, hey, really appreciate everything you're doing with my mom, like, fantastic work. That is the power of that is almost immeasurable. And then doing it through the platform, so the platform makes it really easy for the family to do that. It also then lets the manager see that this employee's been getting recognized and been doing well. So it's a great way to also help you get good feedback on some of your employees. The second piece is what we're calling achievements or milestones. So the application allows you to recognize staff members for certain achievements by awarding them a collectible badge. And so you could have different badges for all the different types of behavior you want to encourage and you want to see in your staff. Think of it almost like the Boy Scouts, getting want to collect all those badges, and they can see what badges they don't have. And they can be, you can have simple things like, completed 90 days on the job, and that can be automated. It's an easy milestone type badge. And then when we talk about points, you could award some points to them for achieving that milestone. It could be also things like, completing a compliance training, getting their first family shout out. It can be really anything you can imagine. The program is configured to let you build out these badges, and a program that suits you. There is the ability to do competitions in the application. So kind of compete, show how your points values as an individual measure up against your peers or different teams and eventually different communities. And then the ability to collect points through these different forms of recognition and then redeem those for everything from, it could be a gift card, maybe it's company swag, job perks, maybe it is professional development. Or if you don't want to use points in that way, which I still think you should include some mix of that, you could just use points as kind of a barometer or feedback tool on the employee's performance real time, and then incorporate that into their periodic reviews. The final little piece of this, which is really cool, and why I think the platform is a great retention tool, is those achievement badges I just mentioned. As you get more badges, each point you have is now worth more for redemptions. So if now maybe each of the points I've earned is worth $2 of gift cards, whatever it is. And so as an employee builds up these badges for performance over time, it's kind of like a loyalty program. If you think about it, like with Starbucks or any of the airlines or hotels, if you will, you're not going to want to leave, because now every point I earn is worth so much more in this rewards platform. If I leave, I'm going to lose all my badges and that kind of achievement that I've built up over time. So it's really a powerful way to encourage longevity in your employees and encourage them to stick with you and encourage them to develop. So very powerful stuff. And we're really excited about it. And we have a bunch of plans of how we're going to kind of build on top of this foundation, but this is what we're coming out with as the starting point. And again, if you are interested in being one of the earlier customers on this and providing influence in the direction of how we take the product from here, please do reach out. We also have some intelligence on the back end, so if you're an operator, you can really see that, again, we were talking about the importance of measuring impact. So you can see, has this improved, has this reduced turnover in the aggregate across my communities, and how that compares to my community. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Again, as we're a communication engagement platform. We're 2,000 communities today. We've been doing staff-to-staff communication for a while and a few different staff applications, but now we're really diving deep on that staff engagement, staff satisfaction piece. But with that, if there are any questions or you want to reach out, you can scan my barcode there, or just type it in the chat and I will try.